and thanks for joining us on another episode of Health Options. Health Options is the program that helps you with the information you need to make informed choices about your health. Welcome to the program. I am Rabi Abdullah. We are in the COVID-19 vaccination stage of the pandemic, and it is not surprising that there are a lot of issues trailing this component of the battle against the coronavirus pandemic. One of such issues is what is referred to as the Peltzman Effect. Hearing of the term for the first time? Not to worry, as you'll get to know all that is to know about the terminology on this episode of the program if you invest your time with us. Do you know that persistent cough for 2 or more weeks could be tuberculosis? In view of the similarity in symptoms between COVID-19 and tuberculosis, it is important to have appropriate diagnosis for both diseases in order to find out the cause of any cough. Don't miss out on our piece on TB prevention, management and treatment in COVID-19. This is Health Options, and our focus on this segment is the Peltzman Effect. As the nation and the rest of the world glide through the vaccination stage in the war against COVID-19, and in the studio with me to get us educated on the Peltzman Effect is integrative medicine expert, our regular, Dr. John Abide. It's always good to have you join us on Health Options, Doctor.
Always my pleasure, Ravi.
Okay.
Always my pleasure.
So let's get started. Yes. COVID-19 is the infant. COVID-19 vaccine is the intent, and citizens of countries are getting vaccinated, including back home in Nigeria. So I'm hearing of this Peltzman Effect for the first time. What has it got to do with COVID-19 vaccine? Start by telling us exactly what the Peltzman Effect is all about.
Peltzman Effect, that is, you're talking about a behavior compensating for perceived risk. What do I mean by that? In simple terms, we can look at it as, a sense of euphorism. That when you become euphoric, you tend to be careless, or you forgo certain things that you should be doing. Specifically referring to COVID-19 or vaccine, is that perceived behavior that because you've not gotten the vaccine, then you tend to lay back. Take, for example, from observing the strict non-pharmaceutical interventions. People say, yeah, we don't have the vaccine, so it is almost over, or it is all over. So they don't see the need for non-pharmaceutical interventions. Anymore. Or they reduce, or the risk, they don't see that risk for COVID-19 again. So they will not be using it as intense as they should. Because we've been advised the non-pharmaceutical intervention, use of face masks, frequent washing and sanitizing of our hands, and then practicing the social distances. All this should be in place. But when you see that the risk for use of these interventions, for example, is no longer there, that is what is known as Peltzman Effect. But the major effect of the Peltzman effect, or the result or the consequences, is mainly our fear amongst the healthcare professionals. Should they also fall under this effect, they are at a higher risk of getting the disease. So let's not deceive ourselves. COVID-19 is still with us. In some places that are even talking about the third wave now. Let's still be very, very, careful. Also, if we don't, and then we can also see this, even in the use of what you call PPE, personal protective equipment. Their use is being de-escalated. Also, you see that Some people, even before they get to the vaccination, centers, they will remove their mask
so
and
people,
say there is
are
no need.
becoming complacent.
Complacent is the word.
Okay.
Complacent is the word.
Okay, but let's look at the vaccination now. First jab, second jab, okay,
Yes.
of the vaccine. Is that all? Does that, seal everything? Can one become infected even after vaccination?
That should be the question, and I'm glad you really asked that. The answer is capital yes, and this is due to a number of reasons. Number one, most of these vaccines, AstraZeneca, Pfizer, and Johnson & Johnson, and the list continues. You require 2 doses. And usually there is a time period, what we call the first dose and the second dose, or what they call the amnestic boosting dose. That is the one that actually boosts your immunity up. It takes time. That of AstraZeneca is 21 days apart. That is the time you get the first dose and the time you get the second dose. That of Pfizer is actually 28 days in between. So what we know is that when you are waiting for between the first dose and the second dose, you've not built immunity up to that optimum level. And by the way, vaccination does not protect you against the disease. What vaccine does is, when it is in your body, it prompts your immune system. Your body builds immunity against the antigen, which is the SARS-CoV-2 virus, so that when it comes, then your immune system will now fight it. The beauty of it is that with that vaccination, when you get the virus, the tendency of you gravitating to a more severe form of the disease is less. Yes. Also, the tendency of you progressing, spending a long time in the hospital is also, shortened. So this is to say that the fact that you have gotten, the vaccination, you cannot get, the virus. No, you can get it. Another reason is that, you see, different variants are actually coming up. So, take for example the South African, variant. Yeah. South Africa reported that they've found out that AstraZeneca did not work with their own, variant.
It wasn't effective.
Or wasn't effective. So, we need to know that due to the fact that we're getting various variants coming up, a particular vaccine may not cover or protect you well or be effective against a new variant that comes up. You see, presently, when we look at the immune boosting of vaccine, we are only looking at the second arm of the immune system. When you talk about the adaptive immunity actually operates in 2 arms. There is that arm that goes to produce the antibodies. Then there is a second arm that goes to produce what we call the cytotoxic T cells.
So how do we strike a balance between the two?
You see, this is a good question, because apparently the second arm, which is the cytotoxic T cell arm of the immune system,
which has nothing to do with vaccine. Which vaccine cannot work on?
No, vaccines actually stimulate that, but we only measure level of immune response through the antibodies. Okay. And even that antibodies, we've got to be very careful. For SARS-CoV-2, the antibodies that are generated for the immune system specifically is what you call the immunoglobulin G and immunoglobulin M. So if you are doing the test, it's these antibodies that you should be measuring. Not any others. Although, let me digress a little bit. There's other forms of vaccines that are coming up now. They use the oral dose, and then they use, the NASA dose.
For COVID-19?
Those ones, oh yes.
Oh, really?
Oh yes. Those ones that are targeting, immunoglobulin A, which is really very important for our immune protection of the GIT, lining. So that once, because it is unlike the other one that we know that it is immunoglobulin G and immunoglobulin M, the NASA and the oral ones is immunoglobulin A.
So it won't be a bad idea if Nigeria looks
Oh yes, this just came out. Some number of countries have actually gone into research, and they've at phase 1 clinical trial now for the NASA, and then oral.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, let me take you back to the Peltzman Effect now, especially where it has to do with health workers. And
yes.
I'm sure you're aware of what is playing out in some countries in that regard. Countries that had started, administration of vaccine, much earlier than this part of the world. What can you tell us about the Peltzman's Effect?
By definition, it's kind of a behavioral compensating for perceived, risk. That is the definition of Peltzman's, effect. So these things are actually universal. Human beings are human beings. Those, whether be it in America, be it in Germany, be it in Cuba, be it in South Africa, Australia, human beings are same percent. Once they see that, especially when they just see that the number of those vaccinated is going up, then they feel that, well, very soon we're going to reach the so-called herd immunity. Yes.
Okay.
So they now lay down their own laws. Yeah, guards. Yes.
So that shouldn't be at all.
That shouldn't be.
We still have people who had been expectant, presented themselves for vaccination. We still have those who are sitting on the fence. We have those who that's still hesitant. What would you say to such people?
You see, vaccine hesitancy and misinformation is one of the key problems that the world is now facing. Those who are hesitant to take the vaccines, they have their own reasons, including, the vaccine will go into the human genome and make me in a chimpanzee, because you see the adenovirus is actually made from the DNA of the human chimpanzee, the chimpanzee. Yes, that is how they actually make the AstraZeneca vaccine. They take the adenovirus, the DNA of the adenovirus from the the chimpanzee, and then make the virus. However, we have those who are saying no. Typically what we know in those days, it used to take up to 15 years before you see a drug will come to the market. But it is, even with drugs, it's no longer so. With new technologies, with proteomics and genomics, they have actually shortened the distance. So the same thing applies with vaccines. If you look at drug development, you start from the discovery phase. Then you go through the the preclinical safety phase, which is the animal studies, before you come to phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. And then emergency use authorization. Okay. A lot has, taken place. Yes, a lot of work. Yeah. However, yes, being a new technologies, people also have the right to, ask these questions. It is just like some of this information or questions that you can ask about COVID-19. Nobody can answer it because we've not gotten enough data to actually suggest, yes, that this is it. Like if you ask that after vaccination, how long is it, how long does immunity last? Nobody can come up and give you a definite answer. All we're doing now, it is, speculation.
Immune modulation. Can you chip in something in that regard? I've been told that vaccination is one thing, and getting it work for you, if your immunity is compromised, is another. What can you say?
You see, the body has its own natural immune defense system, and this must never and not be abandoned. It is very, very important. Actually, this is why we talk, how do you upgrade or upregulate your immune system? Without the vaccines, you can keep your immune system up. We've discussed it. We've talked about nutrition. We talk about lifestyle in general. We talk about nutrition. You talk about stress management. Because when you're under stress, your immune system goes down. Sleep, lack of sleep, adequate sleep. If you don't sleep very well, your immune system goes down. Then you talk about exercise. Then you talk about moral upliftment, the spirit of forgiveness. Your immune system cannot be up and running when you have so much in your heart against people. So there is need for a clean life, forgive, and then move on.
Thank you so much, Dr. John Abide, for making our time to join us once again on Health Options. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure, and thank you, Rabi.
Now you know what the Peltzman Effect is all about, hence the need for you to avoid complacency but continue to stay safe. Time now to bring you tips on managing TB in COVID-19.
Tuberculosis is a chronic disease that affects predominantly the lungs, but it can affect any other part of the body. But it's caused by Mycobacterium tuberculosis. Tuberculosis affects every part of the body, from even the skin to the reproductive system, to the bones, to the spines. So it can affect everywhere. If you are coughing, and of course, and you use all sorts of medicine, and it's lasting more than 2 weeks, that cough could be tuberculosis. Okay, and it needs to be treated. If you are sleeping at night, you are sweating, you wake up, find out that your bed is soaked, that means night sweat. That means you could be having tuberculosis. And of course, if you're having unexplained weight loss, you're just losing weight. And of course, you are not, when you are eating, you don't have appetite to eat, you feel unwell, that could be tuberculosis. For children, you may not see all this, but you may just see that the child that was playing before is no longer playing, you know, and then is refusing feeds. And of course, we look at the child is not breathing well, that could be running temperature, and look at the chest of the child. Instead of the chest going outside, it's not going inside. Then you know that, you could be dealing with tuberculosis. So that such child should be examined for tuberculosis. Well, if you are waiting for the classical signs that you see in adults, you might miss it. Primarily, yes, it's associated with cough. But there are other ways it can present. From the hair, from your skin, even the neck can affect it. And of course, it can even prevent people from walking, paralysis. So when people have TB of the spine, it can prevent people from having children, because TB can affect the womb. It can affect, for men, it can affect even the testicles. So if a child, a man who is married that has TB affecting his reproductive organ may find it very difficult to have children. And of course, it can even affect the bone, leading to fractures and all that stuff. So TB can prevent in a very subtle way, but the most common way TB presents is through cough. TB cough, when you bring out the sputum, there could be blood stain inside. In that case, we call it hemoptysis. So it's quite different for ordinary cough. There's ordinary cough that may not likely give you blood inside, okay? So, and of course, ordinary cough is not going to make you lose weight, looking like somebody that has. But TB, if you are coughing and you're losing weight and looking, losing weight very fast, it could be tuberculosis. Ordinary cough will not make you have night sweat, be sweating at night. So when you have cough, and then of course you are sweating at night, then it's not likely going to be ordinary cough. It could be tuberculosis. If you give birth to a child and the child does not even receive BCG, that child is already at risk of having tuberculosis. And of course, if you now take those days when we drink contaminated, unpasteurized milk, that again predisposes to tuberculosis. And then if you now live in a crowded environment, crowded room, in FCT is a common thing that you have 5, 6 people living in a room, sometimes no window. So it predisposes you to having tuberculosis. And of course, if you stay close enough with somebody that has tuberculosis, then and if it coughs, Of course, we see people entering buses. A lot of them, some people sitting, many people standing, and they're coughing away. So that predisposes to have cough. If you are having any underlying diseases like diabetes, like chronic kidney disease, yes, like some many other diseases that can reduce your immunity, then cancers, you're likely going to have tuberculosis when you get in contact with the people that have tuberculosis. And of course, not searching out for people that have tuberculosis and giving them prompt treatment predisposes others, to having tuberculosis. And of course, you can also come in contact with the sputum of somebody that has tuberculosis, maybe through sharing of utensils, and all that. And of course, if you do not stay far away, because TB actually spread by droplets. The smoker is more likely to have tuberculosis than somebody that is not smoking. It's not as if smoking, again, causes directly cough. People that smoke, they share sticks. You can imagine somebody that is having TB, smoking, and of course, let me have one. You give to the person, you smoke, you think you are smoking, you're also getting tuberculosis. And let us not forget the current trend, shisha. If you go to clubs, go to lounges, you see people sharing. Oh, let me just have a sip. Let me have this. Of course, you could be sharing TB in the process. TB is treatable, it's curable. If you diagnose it early, the treatment is there. Okay? It is treatable. Even the complicated ones, like we call the drug-resistant tuberculosis, is treatable too. And this treatment is available. It is accessible. Okay? And again, it is largely free in most centers. It is largely free. And of course, if you follow it correctly, using what we call the DOT, directly observe therapy, the chances of getting cured is very high. COVID-19 is just a new pandemic that has come, and incidentally, it also largely affects the respiratory system. And then, of course, those people that have COVID-19 also coughs. They cough, and of course, even the mode of contracting it is even similar. And the truth about it again, the two of them, they are also treatable if you detect them early. The good news about it is that, yes, they are treatable, and then both of them too are preventable using the same standard method, social distancing. Okay? For TB, the same thing. For COVID-19, social distancing. If you wash your hands, regularly, for COVID-19, of course, it prevents it. Okay? Same thing with TB. If you touch surface that has tuberculosis, and then you, of course, go and use it, you can also, so washing your hands is also very important. And of course, face mask will also prevent you from getting in contact with the Mycobacterium tuberculosis and the COVID-19.
That does it on this episode of Health Options. A reminder that you can go to our YouTube channel to watch the upload of these and other episodes of the program. Email us for your comments and contributions at healthoptions@nta.gov.ng. My name is Rabi Abdullah. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you again.
Peace.